Battleline podcast, Ian Scotto, Chris Peranto. Plenty of things to get to this episode, actually. A lot of news. Before we get into anything, though, of course, hit subscribe wherever you're listening, wherever you're viewing. I have to say the two newest products from Ned, I think, are the two best products they've ever put out. I have to say the hemp-infused relief balm, the brain blend, which is a powerful 750 milligram. And I've been really into nootropics lately, so it was cool to see that they put out something that was a blend of full spectrum hemp and lion's mane, ginseng, ginkgo biloba, all these things that are going to help with your alertness, with your mind. And I think we take a lot of supplements for our body. It's important to take one for your mind as well.
Oh yeah, hey, you have to. Right? It works hand in hand. That's with me, the physical activity. I can tell you just from the last last month, not being as active as I have been, that it does take a toll on your mind. It takes a toll on your emotions, and which goes tied into your brain there. So doing stuff to help I'd say pump that up, for lack of a better term, with my lack of the English language. It does benefit you immensely. And the balm, I've been using the pain relieving balm since we got it. I mean, it's had a couple months. That stuff is amazing, man. So you got to try that. Get off the icy hot, get off all that other garbage, get on that pain relieving balm. It works tremendously. And for those that want to feel that little, you want to feel that little, I don't call it menthol.
Menthol,
but
there's menthol in there. There's menthol and hemp.
And well, there you go. Now you got it. Now if your brain has to feel that to think that it's working, you got it. All right. So pain relieving balm is tremendous. And then anything that helps stimulate your mind, guys, will help with everything else. It's all tied in together, physical and emotions, and then intelligence as well. Ian's got the intelligent side. I may have the physical side, maybe a little bit, not anymore right now, but it all works well together and it's all tied in together. So you got to try Ned, and Ned makes the best stuff on the market, guys. Tremendous stuff.
Yeah, we love what they do, and I really think these are the two best products they've ever put out. I love them. So these products are science-backed, nature-based solutions that offer an alternative to prescription and over-the-counter drugs. Ned CBD is cold extracted from the world's purest USDA-certified organic hemp in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Full transparency, Ned shares third-party lab reports, who farms their products, and their extraction process, all right there on their site. Ned CBD products have over 2,000 five-star reviews. Become the best version of yourself and get 15% off Ned products with code Battleline. Go to helloned.com/Battleline or enter the code Battleline at checkout. And as a new customer, you're going to get 15% off when you go to HELLONED.com/Battleline and enter that promo code. Thank you, Ned, for sponsoring the show and offering our listeners a natural remedy for some of life's most common health issues.
From Omaha, Nebraska to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Twitch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
You know, Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battleline podcast.
The switch is on. Battleline podcast. As I said, plenty to get to. Sometimes we do this show and I don't know what we're going to get into. In this case, there's too many things that we really can't hit at all. Before we get into that stuff, I was going to say, like in bad news, if you've seen the stock market, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. Terrible. And then in just sports news, Mets have clinched the playoffs. Yankees are one game away.
Yeah.
So that's been exciting to watch. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
been watching more baseball since you're in bed.
Well, I've been watching more everything since I've been in bed the last 2 weeks or maybe longer than that. I actually, yeah, well, because and also people know much as I'm not into sports as I once was back in the college days when I played. I still love watching the Yankees. It just reminds me of being a kid. Watching the Yankees and growing up with the Yankees, Don Mattingly, and even watching with Derek Jeter. I still remember when he was a rookie with Mariano Rivera, and I even have my old Mickey Mantle cards. There's my retirement right there. But Judge,
Yeah.
he may hit Roger Maris. That's, to me, that's cool. I like that kind of stuff, and I think the Yankees, as much as all the other professional sports out there, I think the Steinbrenners, I still love that they have that kind of that blue. It is more of a blue collar more than anything, but that no beards, get your haircuts. Hey man, you still look like a professional athlete that I remember watching growing up, and then of course their arch nemesis, the Sox, are completely the opposite, the Red Sox. So I still do love it. Yeah. And I have been the Mets. Well, I'll pay attention to the Mets when the Mets and Yankees play in the World Series. That's when I love. And that, remember,
It would be
it could
cool to
happen.
see, man.
Well, and that
I
last
would
one
love
they
to see
had,
it happen again.
well, I still remember the Subway series. I think it was back in the 90s. Yeah, it was in the
No,
90s.
it was 2000, I believe.
The-
2000 or
the-
2002. I'd have to look.
right that time. I remember I was in Omaha and I was still in grad school because I remember watching it in my $150 a month rent apartment there in Omaha. And that was
2000.
the two. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was right there. I was still living in like a 10 by 10 out of a cardboard box apartment with one pot that I would just use every time to cook stuff in and wash it for the next meal. But yeah, that was still a tremendous series, and that's just cool seeing stuff like that. So yeah, the Mets, brother, they're not my most unfavorite team until they play the Yankees. Until then, I still love watching the Mets too. They're awesome.
Yeah, I was at the game on Friday after the day after I did the Kristen Beck interview. So yeah, maybe. I mean, the Houston Astros, amazing. Atlanta head to head with the Mets. But with that, people are probably wondering, this is the first show they're hearing from you post surgery, and how are you holding up?
I'm good. Yeah, I mean, it's total knee reconstruction or quadricep reconstruction. What can you do? I really did it right. Tore it well. But guys, I tell you what, pain though, I still, have you ever seen the movie Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks, one of the original Tom Hanks movies back in the day, where the guy Payne, I think his friend, hits his head is a drug user, and he hits his head on the tub because he's trying to drown himself, and Tom Hanks pulls the plug on the tub. The water runs out. He doesn't know that the water runs out, so he hits his head on the tub trying to submerge his head in there, and he hits it. Bam, pain. He goes, pain. Oh, this is a hell of a drug. Pain. This is awesome. Well, that's how I felt after the blocker wore off, the spinal tap wore off after doing the surgery. Man, I tell you what, you tell about embracing the suck. That pain meter, the little pain meter at the hospital. For those of y'all that aren't watching on YouTube, you can't see it, but you've got the little faces. Yeah, I was at the 10 lemon squeezy sucking. I mean, it was like I was screaming. But
and truly, I could say you are not a guy who complains.
No, and that's I was in my head, I was screaming, but I remember the nurses, I just feel for them. They're working their tails off, and it was like it wore off about 2 a.m. So at 2:30, I'm trying to see if I can manage it. And at 2:30, I was like, guys, as pains, and that's how I was. Like I know I was kind of sweating a little bit because of the pain, but I'm trying to be respectful to them because I know they're probably getting pushed 8 million different directions at 2 a.m. But I'm like, guys, I cannot manage this pain. Can we try to up my dosage of whatever it was at the time? And they did. And for the next 8 hours, we just tried to manage it. But it just came down to it where I remember my wife's awesome. She came in at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was just, I'm just going to have to deal with it. There's nothing we can take that's going to be able to manage this pain. And I'm not getting another spinal tap, because if I had to do that, then I had to stay in the hospital another 24 hours. I said, we'll just manage it. And I did. Ton of ice, took some pain medication, and you just suck it up, dude. Just embrace the suck. But also what I love, Ian, and this is what I love about even awful things, is like, I just thought to myself, all right, this is a new feeling. I mean, pain is always pain, but pain is always a little bit different too. And I was like, let's just feel what this is. All right, I'm going to feel this pain. So if I feel it ever again, I can know how to handle it. I know how to come. So I would just honestly, I know it sounds silly, or maybe it sounds like I'm retarded. Can we use that word anymore? Is that PC, right? But I tell you what, I just was like, you know what? Let's just enjoy the pain. And that's what I did. Let's just enjoy it. Screw it. I can't do anything about it. Let's feel every bit of that pain. And honestly, it got me through it, but it kept my mind on it, but not really. It wasn't a mind of complaining about the pain. It was a mind of, all right, let's just feel what all this is. That's just, and that's what I did for the next 12, 24 hours. And then it finally subsided, and now I'm doing great. I mean, I'm off my walker. You would have loved it. I got a little walker. I'm off that. I can actually move around pretty well, even without my crutches, but I'm on a steel brace. It doesn't allow my leg to move at all, flex at all. So if I didn't have that brace, yeah, I wouldn't be able to move. So that's how it is. I got 5-6 months of rehabilitation till I even get full range of motion, let alone running again. But that's all right, man. I've learned to do other things, learn to work out, do other things, doing 1,000 crunches a day in my bed. I watch a lot of TV, so that's not a bad thing. I mean, who gets to lay in bed all day? Guys, people dream of that shit. I mean, I got to be Dave Chappelle, on a freaking what was damn it? I can't remember the Dave Chappelle Jim Brewer movie with them.
Oh, Half-Baked?
Half-Baked, yeah.
Guy on the couch.
I get to hang around all day on the couch in the bed. I mean, how good and my wife brings me food and water, and I get to enjoy life, and I get to be at home. I canceled a lot of the training that I had scheduled because I can't do that. The speaking I'm still doing. But my wife helps me get to those things, so it's not a big deal. It's been, honestly, brother, it's been just a reset, but it's been awesome. It's not been sucky at all. It's just has sucky moments, but so does life. How do you look at those sucky moments? Either smile at them or you don't. And I just choose to smile at them. That's all. So
yeah, and I know a lot of the audience has been praying for you and your recovery.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
it's good to see. As I said, there's too much to get to really in terms of men. I mean, the protests going on in Iran right now, the internet being shut down in Iran right now, the stuff going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia, but we really can't hit all of it. I did think we'd hit this because this is definitely in our wheelhouse, and this really broke last night. Ohio GOP House candidate misrepresented Air Force military service, and this is from AP. Campaigning for Congress in Northwestern Ohio, Republican J.R. Majewski presents himself as an Air Force combat veteran who deployed to Afghanistan after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Military records tell a different story. They indicate he never deployed to Afghanistan, but instead completed a 6-month stint helping to load planes at an Air Force base in Qatar, a longtime U.S. ally and a safe distance from the fighting. Majewski's account of his time in the military is just one aspect of a biography that is suspect and includes a post-military life that has been lived in a world of conspiracy theories, violent action against the U.S. government, as well as financial duress. Still, thanks to an unflinching allegiance to former President Donald Trump, Majewski this is so weird, man. Majewski once painted a massive Trump mural on his lawn. Kind of weird. He also stands a chance of defeating longtime Democratic Representative Marcy Kaptur in a district newly redrawn to favor Republicans. Marcy Kaptur, one of the Democrats I've liked, but has also been there forever. It's definitely time to get someone new in there, although not a stolen valor guy, of course. Majewski is among a cluster of Republican candidates, most running for office for the first time, whose unvarnished life stories and hard right-wing politics could diminish the chances of a Republican red wave on election day in November. So, and then it says right here, this is a quote from Don Christensen, retired Air Force colonel. It bothers me when people trade on their military service to get elected to office, when what they're doing is misleading the people they want to vote for them. When you claim to have done what your brothers and sisters in arms actually did to build up your reputation, it's a disservice. And it goes on from here. And man, it's always so strange to me, these guys who have actually served, they signed on the dotted line, and they feel the need to exaggerate what they've did. Just like Senator here, Democrat in Connecticut, Richard Blumenthal, who's still in office. I think, the guy at the mall who never did anything and wants people to come up to him and say, thank you for your service and wear the uniform. I think it's like a form of mental illness. I don't get the person, though, that actually did something. It would probably be respected if they ran for office and then has to say, oh, I was in combat, I was in danger, and it turns out to all be completely farcical.
Here, this is why I am non-denominational. That's not the word. I'm an independent. I don't represent any of the parties. Is because of this, because of say it with me now, everybody that wants to be a politician. Ethics. Do we know that? Can we say that? All right. You got to have it. And we've seen that it's just on both sides of that, just as you just said. it's not there, and I show you one thing, it doesn't help, especially it doesn't help either party to have somebody that's unethical, but I don't think ethics is something that is a qualification now to be a politician. And I agree with you. I tell people like this, and I do meet other veterans that have come up to me and says, man, I haven't done what you did, but I still,
could I just jump in? We've had him on the podcast. Think
Yeah.
about when we have Phil Labonte on, and Phil will go, I'll go, oh, you're a Marine, and but I didn't really do anything. I think people appreciate that humbleness, because he did do something.
He did do something.
It doesn't matter if he was in combat or not. That's not really his decision. It was when he was in there. And I'm sure if Phil ran for office, he wouldn't need to play up what he did.
Granted, but he is a rock star too, so he can play that. That. But that being said, I'm the same way. Guys, shut up. You signed up. I know what that feeling was like when I was leaving home for the first time. That was scary. All right. And so that's a big deal in itself. How many people were not able to even do that? And so don't downplay your service. I like when Matty Waters, because he said that. So guys came up to him and said, man, I didn't lose my leg, like you did. I did. And he always was something say, wait. And I remember Matty still does this, because he'll say, guys, don't compare your service to mine. You did hard stuff just like I did. Granted, we did different paths, but don't downplay what you did and not be proud of it because you didn't lose a leg in combat. I mean, come on, you still did something great. And you chose to sign up. And that's all you need. I swear, I think we're going along the same lines here when you say that. It's like, dude, that's good enough. That to me, that's tremendous. Just signing up and saying, I want to serve my country, which is essentially you're sacrificing your life. Yeah, you may not lose it, but you're sacrificing the way of life that you knew prior to going in. And that's scary, even from a guy that's done it twice. I'm just saying, I know what those feelings are. Even the second time, it was still kind of scary going in again, going, really? I already know what I have as a civilian. I'm giving that up again, which you do. We give up our rights to go in the military, as much as all you activists out there saying that we have rights in the military. We have military rights, but it's not the same. And that's the thing, is we're giving those up. Be proud of that, because you're giving of yourself, selfless service. Yeah. So doing that, and also when you do that, all that does is besmirch whatever political party you're on. Granted, I think that with Blumenthal still winning his election, I don't know if the Democrats care as much. And that's my perspective. I'm not saying I'm not saying Ian agrees with that. I'm just saying that's my perspective. But at this being said too, if this gentleman wins the election, I in his district, even though that person is in, I don't know who she is, buddy, and she wins instead, can you blame the people for not voting for this guy? He brought it on himself, and we need to hold politicians accountable. The problem is we never will. We never do it. And it's just not going to happen. So we're going to continue to see this. But as a veteran seeing this, hey, knucklehead, why? When I first was like, why the hell? Why do you need to do that? You're an idiot. And now you're making the rest of us veterans look like idiots. And you're making your party look like a bunch of idiots. All right. I'm sure politicians don't need any more help to do that. And you don't need to just besmirch your veteran status to do that as well. So dumb, just dumb. I don't know what else to say about that, but like Forrest Gump would say, yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, I'm thinking of what Kristen Beck said last podcast, who ran for Congress at one point, but she was saying, yeah, only something like 1% of the population serves in the military. It might be less than or more. I don't know exactly. But the point is, like, these words that you guys use, like pogue and all that, to civilians, we don't even know those terms. I think the average civilian goes, wow, this guy signed his name in the dotted line. That's good enough for me. Of course, it's great if you have better stories than that, and you were like, hey, I had this many deployments. But I think for the average citizen, it's like, hey, this guy did more than I did. That's respectable. So I don't know why you'd feel the need to exaggerate that. And I would hope Trump, renounces his endorsement for this guy, but we'll see what happens. We have an email here sent to battlelinepodcast@gmail.com. You guys could always send these in. I don't always get to them. This is from like a month ago, but I thought it was a good one. So here it is. And I probably could have asked Kristen this last week as well, being a SEAL, but I'll ask you. Hey, Ian and Chris, just wanted your opinion on the American Sniper film and your thoughts on Chris Kyle and his awful passing a long time ago, but really value your opinion. Was watching the film recently and read the book. Would love your opinion. Lots of love from England, and that's Matt.
People that just saw my facial expression when I
No, because
did
it panned
that.
to me because I'm the one talking. So
Okay. I'll be I wasn't a big fan of it. I didn't mind the dynamic with the families and such. You know, man, there, and I wasn't there at the I want to always start this. I didn't know Chris. I honestly, it doesn't make a difference to me if I knew him or not. I know there are some guys that I've served with that did serve with him. There's been stories that, yeah, he did good things. You know, I don't think he saved a platoon of Marines in Fallujah or wherever it was, but you know, I'm sure he did his combat. He did his combat with dignity, and he did well from what I understand. But you know, also there are stories out there. You know, the Jesse Ventura lie that he slapped Jesse Ventura, which we're going back to ethics again. That
I don't
didn't
believe that happened either.
Yeah, that didn't happen, and that was looked at as being a big deal to make Chris look like a tough guy. And then also, you know, there's stories out there that, you know, he wasn't nice to kids that wanted his autograph too. That he was a little bit arrogant. Guys, so you got to, I got to take it just like y'all. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I've heard things of him being very arrogant, and I've heard things of him being very heroic as well. I think there's probably, like everything else, the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, no one is. I think no one is this putting on the
Yeah.
pedestal of they're the greatest, or no one. You know, yeah, I think most people are a combination of some good, some bad.
It's assholes, and you got your asshole side, your good side. But the movie itself, because it has Bradley Cooper in it, and because it really, I don't know, man. It is to me, it's one of the more sensational. It is to me, it's one of the more sensationalized of them all. But I do like I do like the family, you know, the wife, and because that's a big that's true. I really believe that the feeling the wife has when you lose someone. The story.
Although, you know, one thing I'll point out though about
Good.
the family stuff, it is known. I mean, I know this because I knew the co-author of his book, and he was living with that guy at the end of his life, or near the end of his life. There was possibly a divorce about to happen. I know that.
Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, you know what? We forget about that. I remember that even coming out around the time the movie came out, or sometime after. With so I would rate it, we could probably talk about it when we have our big circle
next week.
I would rate that movie honestly as a 5 out of 10. I wouldn't be one of the ones I would not recommend. There'd be much more, you know, Black Hawk Down. I would also the HBO movie series of Rudy Reyes, Generation Kill.
Yeah.
We'll put that above it. We Were Soldiers, Once and Young. That's still a tremendous movie. I'd even put, honestly, Heartbreak Ridge, Gunny Sarge Highway over, but I didn't really. I was like, man, you guys made this dude out to be some superhero, and I'm sorry, he wasn't. You know, there are guys that do super heroic things, but to say this is epitomize what the military is, I don't believe that at all. So, but that's not talking about saying he did bad in the service. He did some really good things in service, and I know buddies of his that served him that said he did great things, but also know buddies of his that said, man, he could be a complete asshole too. I must get into third-party information. So all I'm putting it out there. And SEALs generally are good, just like Rangers and so forth. We're good at taking care of our own. So all those guys that told me those things were all SEALs. That's their lane. That you guys take care of your own. And they do the same thing. That's the healthy respect, I think, that the different branches, Rangers, and the different units have, Rangers, SEALs, Air Force, PJ, so forth. When there is stuff that comes out that's a little bit too sensationalized, or if there's misrepresentations, or there's stuff that's grandized, or it's blown out of proportion, the groups will take care of their own. So me being a Ranger, all I'm doing is telling you what other SEALs told me. But other than that, it's not my lane. Let the SEALs that serve with him, let the SEALs that have served now, let people like Kristen Beck, that's their lane. And we do a good job controlling our own, but that's also the healthy respect I think we have for the units itself. But just as a movie side, I didn't really care for it. Lone Survivor was a lot better, my opinion.
Yeah.
As a SEAL movie.
I'll say on the other side, when the book came out, people really loved the book and the fact that it was the first like major book
Yeah.
like that from GWAT veterans, and it was a major hit. And I remember that guy he was like a megastar for a while, going on Opie and Anthony and going on all different types of shows and Fox News. And yeah, a lot of people do love his story. So I think, you know, you're going to get different perspectives on it. We do have to get to Suresh Madhavan. So before we do, Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition that is designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. Fort Scott Munitions is available throughout privately owned businesses in all 50 states. Just go to the dealer locator on the website. You could also buy it right there on fsm.com. Use the exclusive promo code Battleline for 15% off your order. Only available to listeners of this podcast, the Battleline podcast. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline podcast. And we're talking ammo. We got to talk about the best night vision out there. Now you can have the superpower to see in the dark with the Viper binocular night vision system by Photonis Defense, which is the global leader in night vision solutions, providing more high quality night vision capabilities than anyone. Military, law enforcement, and public safety end users utilize Photonis Defense solutions to give them the edge at night in tactical situations and rescue operations. Hunters, shooters, boaters, and enthusiasts can rely on the Photonis Viper binocular to help them become master of darkness. That's their trademark. The new Viper binocular system carries the same features and benefits as the Photonis Defense Viper binocular, with a ruggedized body, and harnesses the power of the Echo intensifier tubes, giving you sharper images, reduced halo, and industry-leading ultra-fast auto gating across the range of dynamic operating conditions. And I know that this is what you're going to be using on the range, right, with your night vision classes. So
we have in December 9th and 10th Battleline. We'll have a December night vision class. It's going to be great. I mean, if you want to really, I know y'all want to be the tacticians out there. You got to step up your game. You got to come and start using night vision if you want to do that. And it's fun. I tell you, people think that's same old stuff, going out to the range, just shooting. When you put on night vision and start shooting, it just brings it to another level. And it's so much fun once you get done. So yeah, definitely come out to the Battleline courses, but come out and try that Photonis Defense. If you have the ability to pick some up, get some, the best night vision on the market. And by far that ammo, Fort Scott Munitions ammunition, there's nothing even close to it, guys. All you old school guys out there, you SIGs, your Hornadies, you Federal, sorry guys, you don't even come close to Fort Scott Munitions. I know it pisses you off when I say that, but it's the truth. So, and that's one thing we do have on the Battleline podcast show is ethics. So we will always tell you the truth. So great stuff, guys.
Check out Photonis Defense, guys. It's photonisdefense.com for more information, or look for Photonis Defense product options from your night vision dealer. That's PHOTONIS defense.com. Joining us for the first time on Battleline podcast, Suresh Madhavan, CEO of 221B Tactical, former police officer, 221btactical.com. You've probably seen the YouTube videos, gear reviews. You guys do awesome stuff with that. So I know you're a good friend of Chris. Great to have you on, man.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Brother, it's good to have you on. Yeah, this is your show. That's why we have you on. We get in and you talk about whatever you want to talk about, and then I'll dive in every once in a while, just because I'll get my Oprah. I call it my Oprah questions. I just want to know. I don't care if anybody else wants to know. I just want to know. But yeah, bro. Since we got you on, 221B's been out there for a while. We'll get into that. But really, we are veteran heavy, law enforcement heavy podcast. So, dude, just start from the beginning, and that's where a lot of it is. And then we can always roll into another episode down the line. You law enforcement. You many years, you had a pretty distinguished career, but what made you want to be want to be a police officer? Or was it some crazy story where you're just like, I got nothing else to do? Or you just were like, had a brain fart that day? Like, I think I'm going to go sign up and be a Leo. I mean, what was the deal?
Yeah, it was a little bit of probably a poor judgment, but it was. I was in I was in school to be a physician. My mother was pushing to have all of her kids. I'm the youngest. I have two older sisters. I'm the baby, and I'm the only boy.
Can we just say, because we're politically incorrect here, that totally fits into like the racial stereotype, right?
I know.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor, okay? So I got into a pre-med program. I was, on the accelerated track for medical school, and I was going to school in New York City at the time.
Okay. Wow.
And 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And after 9/11 happened, my mindset completely changed about what I wanted to do with my life. And I said, I want to go into the military.
Okay.
So, and I had, I never had a dad growing up. It was always my mom. My dad left a few months before I was born. So it was always my mom, single mom raised me. And one of my best friends who lived a few houses down from us, his parents kind of became like, surrogate parents, because my mom was always working. She was a nurse. She was working like 3 jobs. And his dad was in the Navy. He was a CB. And, he was a good influence. He was that good male role model that I think every young man needs in their life, which is, I think, which is a fundamental breakdown in what's going on in our world today.
Yeah.
So thankfully I had that. So I had a little bit of that discipline and work ethic instilled in me as a young man. And so when 9/11 happened, I was like, there's like no question. I'm joining the military. I'm going to fight the people who did this. And one of my friends that I went to high school with, that I played sports with as a kid growing up, actually went to the Naval Academy, and then upon graduation went and became a SEAL.
Okay.
And so I knew about that, and I always I kind of talked, to friends about it, and I read, Dick Marcinko's book Rogue Warrior. It was on my nightstand. It was like, that was it. I hate to admit it, but so when 9/11 happened, I was like, what the. Man,
dude, can I just point out? I'm pretty sure I see Dick Marcinko's book behind you. Isn't that what that is, right behind your shoulder?
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
I was like, that's the cover.
I forgot it was there. It's funny you say that. Yeah, I forgot it was there. So I was like, that's it. I'm gonna join the Navy. I'm gonna become a SEAL, and I'm gonna go get these guys. That's it. And so I went to the recruiter. I talked to them. I got the pamphlet. I got all the information. And of course they were like, yeah, of course, you'll do it, and they didn't care. I could have been blind. They would have been like, yeah, you're all set. So I went home. I had the pamphlet in my hand. I went home. I was like, Mom, I said, I'm joining the Navy. I'm leaving school, and I'm not doing the doctor thing. I'm going to join the Navy. And she's like, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to join the Navy. I want to become a SEAL. I want to go like fight the guys who did this. Like, we were in New York City, the towers just crumbled. And my sister worked at the World Trade Center. Luckily, she got out, and she was able to get out and escape that day. But, it was in my heart. It was in my mind. And she said, oh, you're going to go fight terrorists? Like, yeah. And she's like, no, you're not. I was like, what? She's like, you're my only son. You're my baby boy. She said, you don't need terrorists to kill you. I'll kill you. I will kill you. So I was like, and she's like, a 5'2" Indian woman, So I'm like, so she was like, absolutely not over my dead body. So, I graduated. I got into research. I was working in a lab, and I was doing some biomedical research for a biometric company. And I just wasn't happy. I was kind of floating around. So one of the son of that man who was the CB who raised me, and we were literally like, 2 peas in a pod, and he was my best friend. Well, he became a cop a few years earlier. Okay. So of course, we were talking, I'm floating around, not happy, wearing a lab coat. and he had become a cop. And I was like, how do you like being a cop? And he's like, I like it. He's like, you should become one. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do that. So without telling my mom,
Of course.
I went, tried to, get hired, and I ultimately did. I got hired as a police officer in New Jersey. Insanely, it was a town that had never hired a minority officer ever in the history of the department. And I didn't know that.
What part of New Jersey is this? Because I mean, just as a New Yorker, I know. So
Jersey Shore. You probably heard of Manasquan, Point Pleasant.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In those areas. Yeah. So there's a town called Wall Township. It was in the heart of the Jersey Shore. They were like, the most squared away department in the state. And everyone said, that's the department. They would write their own mother a traffic ticket, which there's an interesting story about something similar to that.
Okay.
And they were just, the best equipment, the best training, the best everything, top pay in the state, 6 figures, And I was like, wow, that's uncommon. So I said, well, if they're the best, that's where I'm going. I'm going to go there. So I went and I applied there, and, I didn't notice that when I walked in the door to get an application, like the record screeched and like everything went silent. And I was like, they're like, this guy know where he is. They wore the big Mountie hats, the big Stetson cowboy hats and everything. So I got hired there. My mom was so pissed. She didn't come to my, graduation or anything like that. She was pissed, because in from where my mom's from, India, in that culture, if you're not like a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, you're homeless. Like that's what they think of you. You're like, you're a derelict, And also in the Indian culture, in India, the police are corrupt, so like to have her go back home to her family and say, oh, my son became a police officer, it's essentially saying my son became a crook. And they don't realize that it's different here than it is there.
Sure.
So so that's how I ended up in law enforcement. And I literally said, I'm going to do this for a couple of years just to kind of, feel it out, whatever. And 13 years later, but it gave me I'll tell you what, it gave me a great foundation, not only as a citizen, but also from the business standpoint that I'm now doing. Becoming a police officer, you got to wear 100 different hats. Sometimes you're a marriage counselor, sometimes you're a child counselor, sometimes you are a paramedic, sometimes you're like, something else. So during one shift, you have to wear a lot of hats, and it really helped my social skills. It helped my communication skills, my learning how to read different, situations, and like know when I had to be up here or when I needed to be down here. You're talking to women, you're talking to children, you're talking to people from the Asian culture, you're talking to people from the Middle Eastern culture. In this culture, in this household, I can't really speak to the woman. I got to direct everything toward the man. In this household, which is maybe more of an American household, I can kind of split them up and talk separately. But you go to a household that's like Middle Eastern or Asian, you can't do that. Like you're not taking the wife into a separate room and speaking to her. So those are all the things I learned as a very young man. You're going into domestic disputes, and I was 22 years old, and I'm telling, I didn't even have a girlfriend. I had a dog, and here I am trying to like settle a marital dispute, and I'm 22. What do I know? But you kind of had to figure it out. And so it was a good learning experience, and it gave me a lot of building blocks to become an entrepreneur and ultimately, start the business.
Sure. Did you find that at that time, the majority of the officers didn't have that skill set or weren't willing to learn the skill set? Being of different ethnicity, honestly, that is an advantage. And I saw even being Mexican going overseas as well. Because there are, just like you said, there are different little things that you shouldn't do that can escalate a situation to make it worse. And the white side, sometimes the white side, and we don't get racial all up in this piece, but you got to say it. Sometimes the white side doesn't get that, everyone, especially if they haven't been out of their particular area. But did you find that the majority of the guys that I worked with, like Roan, like Jack, I mean, they got it. They would figure it out. They didn't go in face first. Doyle rules, hit everybody in the face, direct action. They figured it out, but there were some that didn't. and that sometimes they made problems worse. What did you see as you were coming up with the different people in the police department, and were a lot of them willing to learn those little skill sets that you need to be successful and to get out of fights? Sometimes the best fight to win is not to get in a fight at all. What did you see as you were growing up in the police department, and how did it grow? Did it grow and become better at dealing with situations, or did you see it become worse?
That's a great question. I was actually shocked at how, and I think another advantage I had was I went to school in New York City. New York City was much more diverse. You saw people of all different races and all different sexual orientations and cultures and ethnicities. So
if I could just say, man, the thing about New York City too, and I've heard other people say this as someone who, worked in New York City, it's like, it truly is a melting pot, because we all ride the subway together, and you could be riding the subway next to a, black homeless person and next to a white multi-billionaire. Like it really is a melting pot. It's not like, it's very different than LA, where everybody is in their own cars.
Why can't it be a white homeless person and a black I'm giving,
of course it could be. Yeah. And then it could be like a transgender. I mean, it's literally everyone. It's everyone.
Everything.
This is the kind of fun we have, dude. This is how we are. So that's how we do it.
That's the funny thing. You like in New York, like, you saw, I was a young kid. I was 19, 20, 21. And we saw that everywhere. You're, like you just said, you're on the subway, you see gay people, you see transgender people, you see transvestites, you see cross-dressers. That stuff has been around. It was like you just kind of like, you were like, whatever. It's
true. It's become like on the national forefront in the past few years. But if you're in New York City, we've seen it all.
You've seen it all. You saw it every day. I would get onto the subway going home from class or one of my late night lab classes, and you get on the subway, and the shit you would see would probably blow most people's minds, but you just kind of became numb to it. It's a New York City subway. It is like it's like a clown show.
Dude, I've seen like a homeless guy blowing another homeless guy like on the train home from work, and I'm not making that up.
Yeah, you just see it out. So you kind of you're like, yeah, whatever. So now everyone's like, oh, we need transgender bathrooms. You're like, what? Come on, this is like people. You realize how closed minded and how closed vision the average American is. And then I went to this small town in like southern Jersey, and most of the people there, they're all white. And most of the people were from that town. They went to that high school, they played football there. Maybe they went to community college for a few years, and they came right back and they became a police officer there. Everyone there was like an Abercrombie and Fitch dude, white hair, white blonde, hair, blue-eyed, whatever. So like, and then, so they didn't, and most of them had never left that area. Some had, but most hadn't. I'll tell you what, the people that I saw that had a deeper understanding were the select few that played college sports and played with black people, because they had to, when you're on a college sports team and you have a black roommate, you're sitting at chow hall with your black teammates, you understand a little bit more where they're coming from. You realize that, okay, they have different views on things and whatever. So you have a better understanding there. But the ones that never left that town, never played college sports, never did anything, you could tell they were like this, and they had that tunnel vision. And when things would pop off, they didn't have that, what we called verbal judo.
Yeah.
They just didn't know how to manage it. They just didn't have the narrative inside of them, where you saw like me coming from New York City and going through the program I was in and having a little bit more, let me say, diversity behind me. I was able to manage those situations a little bit better.
You had more experience, but we use the word that's bullshit. You had more experience behind you.
I had more experience.
Diversity is a catchphrase that we use that's popular now because it pops in political speeches and it makes people ruffle up. Diversity is experience. In my opinion, and you're right on the football thing. I saw that when I wrote about in the Ranger Way. And not because it was just African American black players, just because we had West Coast Bloods, Donna Street Crips, we had Tongan Crip gangsters.
Oh wow! Wow.
And we had guys from, I mean, we were good, but we were gangster heavy because we were a JC out of Las Vegas. So all these kids,
Oh.
they're all D1 players, but they got to get their, what I saw is that's just African American. I saw these guys that would kill each other on the street come together, and we were a team. And to me, that was just so awesome to see. It's like, oh my God, these fuckers, excuse my language, but these guys they would slay each other on the street. I remember talking to a guy, I remember his name, Chucky, tremendous free safety, probably the best free safety I ever played with. I go, Chucky, dude, how come you're not killing Stacy over there? I said, I'm this Mexican kid. Yes, I am, but I'm not a gangbanger. Why are you guys not fighting? He goes, we just want to win, brother. That's what he said. He said, we just want to win. He said, I'll kill him out there in the street, but here we just want, and I saw teamwork. I was like, oh my God, I understand the importance of teamwork and how differences, even on that level, people put them aside, even as kids, to win. And that stuck with me forever. And it stuck with me forever in the military. So I agree with you on that athletic side, man. I really do, especially football. And we got to get into football too. Yeah, we got to get into football too. Then, if you played, we got to talk about that. But we'll get into that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, and that's why I'm a big proponent of when I talk to young people today about telling them the importance of sports. And some people say, "Oh, I don't like that sport," and I tell them, one component is the sport. One component is just doing something and moving your body and being fit. I said, but another important component of it is the social aspect and the social element of being on a team, learning to work with others, not making it about you, but making it about us. Those are some important things. So, I talk to some kids and they're like, well, I'm not really into basketball, or I'm not into football. Fine, it's okay. And I'm not saying you got to go become a superstar player and like try to go D1, but you play for the other benefits of it. And you start realizing, okay, this is what it means to be selfless and to, actually do for the team. So those are some important, factors. But I noticed that with the guys that I worked with, and the guys that never had that, you notice it too. Just like you and I right now can walk into a room and have conversations with a bunch of different people. And then you and I can leave the room, reconvene in the hallway, and we can now look at a video of all the people in the room and 100%, without a doubt, point out the people who've traveled abroad and spent some time in other countries and whatever, and who has never left America. Because you and I we have that ability, because you hear the ignorance, you see it on social media, and you hear people say things and make comments and talk about things, and you realize, like in my mind, when I'm at like a cocktail party or something like that, and you talk to people and they're like, oh, in my mind, I'm like, this person has never freaking left the United States of America. It is so evident. It is so evident just in their mindset and their mentality and how they're talking. But then when you meet someone who's been around and seen other countries, and you're like, okay, this person gets it. This person knows that there are countries, the police here are bad. There are countries where like the police, they do like horrific things to civilians in the middle of the street. And, so it's not like, so you've been to some of the stands and,
I've seen it. I've got I will actually post it again. I think I post a lot. I remember walking and I know I'm taking this from you, but I remember walking in the Mahdi district in the backside of Kabul. And I remember coming around the corner, and it's such Indiana Jones. It's so cool. And come around the corner, and I saw this cop with his rubber baton. He was beating the living shit out of this Afghani, just crushing. Literally on the legs, not on the head, but they beat down low on the thighs, on the ass, because the guy didn't do anything bad. And I remember I had my interpreter was with me, my Afghani guy. I go, what the hell was that? I got pictures of the cop walking away. He's looking at me as I take a picture of it, because I'm pretending to be a NGO. I'm with the agency, but and he goes, he parked his donkey cart in the wrong spot and he wouldn't move it.
Oh my
God. How about when we had Hamidi Jassim on a few weeks ago, who as a 12-year-old got like violently thrown into the police car, then brought to a prison and tortured. So
but you're exactly right. And you growing up, and I'm sure you had probably stories, or did your mom protect you from some of the stuff when she grew up? Did she not tell you those stories or use them as a lot of them? I mean, my mom, I'm glad she told me some of the stories, not to protect me. It was for me to learn.
Yeah,
and and I know how because I know your mom is probably a wise woman. Did
Oh
she
yeah, yeah.
help you with that, or were you prepared when you left, or did she just keep you? I don't know. I guess, what was your relationship with her, and how did she prepare you for leaving the house? I know we're backtracking, but I'd like to know,
Yeah.
because women like that are wiser beyond their years. I mean, just tremendous. My mom is the most wise woman, aside from my grandma, who grew up
No.
in Mexico. But yeah,
Yeah.
what was that like growing up? Because I know she was tougher than nails too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was told she had to be mom and a dad, and then
Yeah.
especially once I started getting bigger, I mean she's I'd say she's 5'2". She's probably now shrunk to 5'1", and I'm now over 6'2", and I was like 100 and something pounds, and it didn't matter. She didn't care. She never. It was like the poodle and the Doberman. She didn't care how big I got, how when I started lifting weights and whatever. She never cared. She still doesn't care. You know, she realized that she had to hold a line, and she had to demand that respect. And she knew, because of her size and her stature, she had to use the thing that we see many people using, even our government today: fear. She had to use fear to control me. That was the only thing she had, really. She didn't have her size or strength. She would hit me as a kid, but once I got to a certain size, I was like, "What
Oh,
do you
crap.
do?" She, hit me with the wooden spoon, and I'm like, "Okay, it doesn't really hurt." So she kind of got that. But she took us to India as children, and she shared a lot of her stories. She was a nurse in New York City, so she was a nurse in some really rough
Wow.
areas, and she
Yeah.
saw a lot of rough things, and she would share that with us, just to let us know what the world is really like. And once again, that was a little bit of fear. So she taught us a lot about those things. What she didn't do a good job of, she was never like one to, hug me. And, I don't think she told me she loved me until my first midnight shift as a police officer. And I was 22 years old, I think. And I was going on my first night shift, and she called me and she said, "Are you wearing your vest?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay." She said, "I don't know why you're doing this job, but be careful, and take care of everyone else. They'll take care of you, and I love you." And I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was like, "Thanks." I literally, I never heard her say it. But so she was not that kind of like huggy, lovey
Sure.
kind of mom. But she taught us about the dangers and the realities of the world. The only thing she didn't do a good job of was, really letting me know about like how people might look at me. Because when you're a kid, you don't realize you're brown and you don't look like everyone else. That only comes to light as you get a little bit older. So probably like after elementary school.
Do you think that, in my case, and I've got some old pictures, man, I look like Vatos Locos forever. But that was one thing with my family. They didn't, I didn't know about, that was not discussed because it wasn't important. In fact, to my grandfather, my abuela, it was never, "Oh man, we didn't get what we wanted because we're Mexican." It's because, well, we didn't get what we wanted because we didn't work hard enough. And honestly, I think that helped. I never saw race. I never talked. We never, because it wasn't always up to us. And whether my grandfather, I know he probably did go through some racial stuff. I mean, come on, he was a picker that came over from Mexico on a work visa, and he got his citizenship and later got his farm through hard work. That's what I saw. Do you think that's what she was doing? Because I think I don't think that, my opinion, I don't think that race needs to be discussed when you're a kid. I don't. We don't. I didn't need it. I didn't need it. It wouldn't have done anything to me. But honestly, I think to me, it would have given me excuse if something didn't go right. "Oh, I didn't get it because I'm Mexican. Oh shit, I didn't get it because I'm this." Do you? And I really believe that's why my mom and my grandfather and grandmother never said anything like that. They just said, "Hijo, work harder. Hijo, you need to work harder. You need to you need to make yourself indispensable, so they cannot not pick you." And
Yes.
that's what resonated. Do you think that's what she was doing? And do you think it helped, or did you think you needed to know, "Hey, I'm a different color, or I speak a different language, or whatnot"? Because I never saw that. And I saw my grandfather was one of the most well-respected people in the community he lived in. And I didn't really, I mean, I was proud to be Mexican, but it wasn't, well, we're Mexican, so we're different. It was like, man, my grandpa Joaquin, he's a badass because he's a grandpa. He's my grandpa Joaquin. It wasn't because he was Mexican. So
Right.
but what is your opinion on that? And it, brother, you can differ from mine. That's just my personal experience growing up, and I'm glad I was raised that way. But what was yours then? What did you think your mom was trying to do?
The one thing my mom told me was, as I got a little bit older, she said, listen, you're going to be viewed differently because you look different. And because of that, you have to do certain things in a different way. So she always said, you're going to have to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
You're going to have to look a little bit better. You're going to have to always be mindful of your appearance. You want to always be mindful of how you speak. You want to be mindful of how you address other people and you greet people.
That's awesome.
And you want to be mindful of your work and the work that you do, because there's going to be an element of people, not everyone, but there's going to be an element of people who are going to look at the color of your skin and make an automatic assessment and like, that's the black kid. So she said, just know that. And once again, like you said, I don't know if you said it to your abuela or what said it, work so hard that they can't treat you differently.
My grandma,
work
my
so
grandma.
yeah, work so hard that it's just not possible for them not to give you the opportunity.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And guess what? That's like the story I tell when I speak to young kids. I'm like, listen, it's not about what's opportunity and who has, privilege and all this stuff. You work so hard that they can't ignore you. Work so hard that they can't possibly look down at you, and they have to see you as equal. And I had to do a little bit extra. I was mindful. My buddies that like I went, hung out with, like they could wear hoodies and like the skater shorts and all that stuff. I couldn't wear that stuff. I always had to wear khakis. I would typically have some kind of collared shirt on, even if I was skating or riding around on my GT BMX bike. I always had, my mongoose bike with pegs. I always had my my collared shirt, my khakis on. I always tried to look proper, just because, like, you walk into we were living in an all-white town. I grew up originally on Staten Island, New York, before we moved to New Jersey. Staten Island, New York is the most Italian white place on the planet. Right? It's like, and I was like, literally, I felt like the only black kid on the island. And then went to New Jersey, and it was even worse in this town she moved us to, but she moved us there because of schools and education. But like, I realized, hey, listen, look a little bit more squared away.
That's it.
Speak properly, address people properly, be respectful, don't be loud, don't be obnoxious, don't be boisterous, whatever. And she told me these things because she kind of was like, if you step out of line and you do those things that maybe some of your white friends can get away with, you're going to be viewed way differently than they'll be viewed. So just act this way and you'll be at a higher level, and you'll be viewed as a higher level. And that's how you want people to see you anyway.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it worked. It worked out well for me. And I said, you know what? Yeah, and I dressed, go to someone's house, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Always thank you so much. Someone fed me dinner because my mom was always working. I was always at someone's house having dinner. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Someone gave you a ride home from football practice. Thank you, ma'am. Really appreciate it. All the things that like you should teach your kids. My mom was like, you have to be like 110% on those things. And that's what made me the person I am. And I also got surrounded by kids that were also like that, because they kind of gravitate toward each other. And what happened? Well, if I'm hanging around with the white kids, because I was the only people to hang out with were those white kids that were also very cordial, very polite, very respectful, had good manners, I started gravitating toward them, right? Well, what are their parents like? Parents were in the military. Parents are successful. Parents are squared away. So I had the let me say through osmosis, being around those parents, I had that influence now put down on top of me as well. And now I'm hanging out with those kids and those parents having dinner, and they're reinforcing the good behavior. They're reinforcing being squared away, focusing on school, focus on sports, focus on this. And it was just, it was one thing led to another. It was like, good things growing on top of good things. And
that's amazing. That's honestly, that's a blueprint for how every kid should be. It's not just black, white, brown, yellow. It's how we all should raise our kids. But your mom sounds like my mom. It really does. And because my mom's a little Mexican lady. Well, she was mean sometimes, though. She was mean, but she
my mom too. Yeah.
Oh, I love me to death. But no, that's perfect, because I completely agree with you. As far as, hey, just always be better. I'll look better. Just do things, and not better than somebody else. Just do it better. I think we use the word term better more as it's a negative. It's actually a positive. Work better to better yourself, to be that person that says, sir, yes, sir, no, ma'am. Yes, that opens doors for people. Have some chivalry, have some respect for yourself and others. And you're right, it does gravitate to you. And I have to admit that when you're around the correct, I'm not going to lie and say that when I got in trouble, it was handled a little differently. It was honestly, it was, you know what? He's a good kid. He's a good kid. He just made a mistake. Where if I would have been that little hooligan gangster kid that I wanted to kind of be too, no, it wouldn't have been. It would have been treated a lot differently. Is that wrong? Or honestly, that's just, I think if you do handle yourself, and now you're a police officer, I guess this can go into that realm too. If you're a kid and you come across a kid or somebody that, that you do know in society, that you do know in your area, in your community, that is just, they're good. They may just have made a mistake. Do you see that? Yeah, is it looked at differently if you come across the known kid I didn't say kid, just a person that is constantly in problems, constantly doing minor crimes? Is it handled differently? And I know if I was in your shoes, I know I would probably say, yes, I probably would, because I know that, he probably just made a mistake. Now, if he does it again and it becomes habitual, then we've got a problem. But how does that handle? What do you look as a police officer when you see those things? Because that's when you got to put a different hat on now. Now I've got to be a more or less I don't know, you guys, I don't want to say you're Judge Dredd, but you're kind of a judge right there in the street more than anything. But there is a correct way to handle that, where you can't just keep giving the criminal chance after chance after chance, but you can give this kid that just made a mistake, and okay, you made a mistake, buddy. I'm just going to smack your hands on this one. Just don't do it again, because 99.9% sure he's not going to do it again, he or she.
Yeah.
But what do you see? How did you handle situations like that?
The thing that, we see in the media, I saw in real life. I was out there in the community every day, besides my days off, but I lived in the community as well. So sometimes I saw those kids or saw those individuals on my days off, as I, went grocery shopping or went to the gym. But being there every day for 13 years, you literally saw kids who, the first time you saw them, they were 7. And by the time I left, they were almost old enough to drink, So you saw the progression. The one thing you can't get away with in a town like that, when you're seeing these kids every day, is you can't, as a parent, say, when your kid gets in trouble, my kid's a good kid. You're like, no, I've been here for 13 years. I've been dealing with your kid since he was 9. And now he's 16 and he's still doing stupid shit. And so don't tell me, like you see on the news, oh, he was a good kid, I don't know. No, I know he's not a good kid. I dealt with him for years. And it started out with him at 8 or 9 years old, giving you shit because he didn't want to go to school. And then it progressed to him cutting school a couple of years later. And then it progressed to him being caught in the woods with, some friends doing some stuff they couldn't. And then it progressed to, being at a party with underage drinking. And then it progressed to this. And then finally it progresses to something where they're involved in a break-in. And they're like, and you call the parents and they come there and they're like, So my kid's a good kid. This is, I don't understand. Like, no, your kid is not a good kid. Your kid has been a bad kid for years, and it's your fault he's not a good kid. It's not his fault. Yeah. It's your fault. The problem with kids these days are parents these days.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of these people didn't understand. So like when I see on the news, you see this guy fought with the police, and the police had to tase him, chase him, shoot him, and the parents are there with some guy, some lawyer trying to make a buck, and the parents are there crying like, oh, my kid was a good kid. Put his criminal risk history on the TV. Put the first date that the police ever interacted with this child, and then put how many interactions they've had up until this point where he was ultimately, as a 20-something-year-old, shot by the police. It would probably blow people, but they never show that. Yeah. They never show that. Now, the times where I run into a kid and I'm like, I've never heard of you. I've never seen you. You've never been in trouble. This is a very good thing. And it should end with me never seeing you again. And once in a while, these kids would get in a little bit of trouble. They were like the outliers. And I would, the parents would come in and we would take care of it. And yes, of course, if they weren't a repeat offender, they were a good kid, they would get a little bit of a slap on the wrist. And when they would leave, I would shake their hand. I'd shake the parents' hand, mom or dad. And I would say, hey, no offense, but I hope I never see you again. And they would always laugh. And they'd be like, yeah, hope I never see you again too. And I'm like, I mean that in the best way. And the parents would always say, thank you.
I still remember when a police officer said that to me in high school, when I was more scared of my mom coming to get me.
Oh,
I was more scared of like, holy shit. And I still remember that being said and going, I hope I never see you again. And he never did.
I just want to use that to roll into something else, because when Suresh, when we were texting yesterday, I know that this is an important topic to you and kind of rolls into what we were just talking about, of what we're seeing, I think in particular the past 2 years, the defund the police movement, the hypocrisy that we're seeing politically, from being pro-police and anti-police and some of the stuff going on. I know that hits home for you as someone who was in this field. So yeah, let's get into it a little bit.
It's what you see today is a pure result of a fundamental breakdown in the family. Now, the reality is it's been like that for a very long time. Sadly, in minority communities, there is an uncomfortable abundance of single moms raising children. There's no father in the household for whatever reason. Sometimes you have kids with no father and no mother, and they're being raised by grandma or grandpa. And I've met many young kids who were being raised by grandma and grandpa, who were now much wiser and were doing a phenomenal job of trying to raise these kids, but they're not their parents. So there's always a struggle there. But the breakdown occurs there. When you don't have two parents and structure in the household, that's the beginning of the end. And things can unravel from there unless you have a strong parent or strong mother like my mom, who realized she was in a compromised situation. So what my mom did essentially was she had to play both sides. And she knew that if she got me from both sides, I would never quite realize that she was alone. So it was kind of like the lone sniper, but he just has two guns set up at different positions. And the person taking fire is like, wait, I guess there's two guys out there right now putting rounds on me. But it was only the one guy running back and forth. That was my mom running back and forth, because she knew she had to do that. So, but that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in most households. And sadly, it happens predominantly in Black households, and it's very sad to see. And of course, it happens in white households, but the facts are the facts. And in white households, there is a much lower incidence of the single parent household. But you look at that, and you look what that turns into, and it ultimately leads to a lack of respect for authority. And that is really, people think it's only the police. No. These kids that don't respect police, they're not respecting the principle at their school.
Yeah.
They're not respecting their teachers. They're not respecting the guy who owns the little bodega on the corner. They're not respecting the business owner. They're not respecting anyone. So it's not just a disrespect of people. There's a I don't want to say it's a misconception, but there is a little bit of an ideology that these young black men have no respect for the police. Guess what? They have no respect for anyone in authority. That's just the truth. It's not just the cops, but when it comes to the police, of course, there is part of the culture that is ingrained where the police are bad, the police are against them, police, whatever. There is no in let me say the Caucasian culture. I've grown up, I've seen both sides, I've lived both sides, I've had the let me say the unique experience of seeing both sides and living both sides. The white culture doesn't have music that glorifies shooting the police and F the police. That you see that as part of the black culture. And I'm not
although that music has like transcended everything. I grew up listening to that, and I know Chris did too.
Yeah. Yes. I did. Yeah. I listened to NWA. I listened to Ice Cube. I listened to Biggie Smalls. I listened to it all. However, I listened to it, but the reality of where I was living wasn't that. I was living in a neighborhood. It wasn't a nice neighborhood. It was a blue collar town. You had electricians, plumbers, hardworking iron workers, union people. It was all white people, but these were all people. No one had a new car. Everyone was driving an old beat up pickup truck that on the weekend they were fixing the carburetor just so it would work for the next week of work. That's where I grew up. It wasn't, it was a nice town, but it wasn't rich by any means. And they were hardworking people. So I could live in that neighborhood and live in that town and, sit at a dinner table where, a Navy veteran and his hardworking wife that's a paralegal trying to make ends meet were giving me a meal, whatever. And I'd be like, hey, I'm going to the mall. And as I back my car out of the driveway, blast Biggie Smalls on the way to the mall. All right. And then you get to the mall and then you're like walking by the Gap and Banana Republic and, you're like, okay, it was very, very different. But when you are listening to that music, and then you're also living in the neighborhood that they're talking about in the song, and there are actually gangbangers shooting people, there's drug deals happening, there's all these things that are the reality of that music you're just listening to, well, then it becomes your culture. It's not a song you're listening to. That becomes your life. And you become, I don't want to say it engulfs you and takes you, but you can't, it's all around you. How can you avoid it? So that's the difference that makes the difference. And people, a lot of people say, well, what does that lead to? Well, of course it leads to this disrespect and lack of, not respecting authority. And then that leads to, you have situations go wrong. Now, the reality as someone who worked the job, who was able to, work in a part of our town that they brought in low-income housing, and that section of low-income was predominantly Black. And then we had, the McMansions and the rich white people on the rest of the town, right? And we had some surrounding towns that were predominantly Black. They had gangs, whatever. So we had little dealings with, and we were able, to experience what those towns dealt with on occasion. And the reality is this: you have this, let me say, disrespect for law enforcement, this disrespect for authority that, let me say, somewhat ingrained in them. Oh, the police are out to get you, whatever. But you also saw the outliers in those communities. You also saw the young Black men in those communities that when you pulled them over, hello, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I won't do that again. Yeah, okay. And you're like, okay, this kid is being raised right. I don't care if he's being raised by a single mother or whatever. And almost always, I would come to find out that young Black man had a hardworking mom, hardworking dad, and they're, telling him focus on school, focus on the sports, and they had him locked in and squared away. Almost always when I met a nice young man like that, I was like, man, okay, this kid's doing right. Once in a while, single mom. And I would go knock on that door. I would knock on that door and be like, Ma'am, hey, you're so-and-so's mom? Yeah. I just talked to him over at the basketball court. Yeah, really? What did he do wrong? I will kill him. I said, he didn't do anything wrong. He actually waved at me when I drove past the basketball court. So I got out of the car and I went over and I had a conversation with him. And he was one of the most respectful young men on that basketball court. And I just wanted to say, you're doing a great job. And she'd be like, yeah, I'm a single mom. I'm working a couple of jobs. And I said, yeah, my mom's the same way. I said, but whatever you're doing with him, you're doing it right. And man, that meant so much to them. A young Black woman trying to raise a young man by himself, that meant so much to them. And I said, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry. And look, I made it out. I made it out of wherever I was, the situation I was in, and look where, and oh man, thank you. Hey, listen, anytime you want to stop and talk to him, go ahead, talk to him. So that has now become the secondary, tertiary thing. And now it's the police are bad. We got to defund the police. Let me tell you something. I've never gone into a Black neighborhood and talked to a Black mother of children who has said, we need less cops in this neighborhood. Never in my life. Never in my life have I talked to a Black grandmother and a Black grandfather trying to raise children, their grandchildren or whatever, in a Black neighborhood riddled with crime. And I've never heard them say, we need less police here. There's too many cops here. Cops are bad. We need less. In fact, they're saying the opposite. You talk to the parents and the mothers in these neighborhoods, they're saying, we need more cops here. This guy, that guy, those guys are drug dealers. These guys are gangs. I don't want my baby. They will say it right to your face. You go to, I've been to town hall meetings in cities across this country, and you would think you're in the Twilight Zone. At these town hall meetings in these major cities, they are there because of 221B Tactical. I've been able to go to these things when I'm donating. When you make a donation to a police department, they usually do it like, the dog and pony show at the town city hall meeting, So I'm sitting in the back with my stuff and one of our guys to, do a donation. But prior to that, you're listening to all the shit going on in the town. And what do you see? You see these Black parents like, we need more cops. This is not good. We need more police. But what do you see on the news that night? Defund the police, defund the police. That is not the people in those neighborhoods who are seeing the crime, watching kids get shot. That's not the cry of those people. That's just a political talking point that is like, oh, okay. And now what's happening? Now they tried to defund the police. They did, right? And some people were saying abolish the police, the crazies. And look what's happening. Well, you defunded the police, okay, and now because you defunded the police that remained were kind of stressed and strapped, so they're all retiring, leaving early, finding other jobs. So now you have even less police, and then what do you have? You have crime skyrocketing. And guess what neighborhoods are experiencing the most crime and the highest spike in teenagers and young Black men being killed, not by the police, by each other, these neighborhoods where they defunded the police. So I'm not a conspiracy guy at all, but I'll tell you this, as a Black man walking through America, I could tell you this. If I didn't like Black people, I would have two ways to go about it. I could just go around and just try to hurt and kill Black people and, whatever, but I know I'd end up in jail and whatever. Or I could say, you know what, let me do these little things here and there that will ultimately lead to the neighborhoods declining and they kill themselves. Because what's happening in these neighborhoods, Chicago, Baltimore, Philly, the number of young Black men and women killed in a single weekend in these cities would blow you away. But it's never talked about. It's never talked about. And this is all a result of this defund the police movement, the whole phony hands up, don't shoot, which never even happened. And the only people they're hurting, now you start seeing a little bit of it bleeding out. The woman who was running and, got abducted and killed, but you start, it's bleeding out a little bit. It's not until the crime enters the neighborhoods and people start getting negatively and adversely affected, will people start screaming. And look what happened on Martha's Vineyard when they dropped 48 nonviolent people. there. They called the National Guard. They're like, yeah, we diversity. We love diversity. We love diversity. We want all people to come here. National Guard, get these guys out of here tonight. Tonight, get them out. You're like, wait, whoa, wait a second. Now, let me ask you, if these same people all of a sudden, because of defund the police and all this stuff, if these same people had some gangbangers starting to creep into their neighborhoods and commit crimes, they would freak out. They would freak the F out. And that's the next progression that is, of course, bound to happen, because it starts in the cities and then it goes into the suburbs. We all know that. No one's dumb. So this whole defund the police movement has had such negative ramifications on the inner cities and Black people predominantly, but now it's going to start to spread. And this is when people are going to start now saying, whoa, hold on. This is probably now, of course, you have the president and these other politicians saying, well, we never quite said defund the police. We said, reallocate funds. I'm like, come on, man, there's YouTube. I just watched a video of you saying defund the police. Now you're trying to say you didn't say defund the police. Like, come on. Like, do you think we're stupid?
So, obviously they do, because we keep putting these elitists, the majority of them, these white elitists in charge that are saying that. I completely agree with all that, man. And that's just facts. All you're saying is can be backed up with numbers. And if you can back stuff 100%. Up with numbers, you can say what you want about what Suresh is saying, but he's spot on. So how do we, you being a law enforcement, this is your opinion, how do we get people to start voting for those candidates, or having candidates that actually are going to do what they say and fund the police and actually try to fix things and actually try to have ethics in office? I mean, we had a thing today where we had a damn Republican who unethical stolen ballot. It's like, gosh, man, you're just killing yourselves, guys. What is your opinion, and how do we fix it? Is there a way to fix it? And the only way to fix it is to not keep electing these piece of crap elitists. But I guess the only way to not have it happen anymore is to let it filter into these areas that they live, so they can start experiencing it for themselves. I mean, it's almost like the inflation. How do we reset and get this inflation out? Well, we got to let everything crash. Well, then how do we stop this defund the police bull crap? And how do we get good people in office that aren't these big elitists? Well, we got to let all the crime start filtering into those neighborhoods now. It's like we got to reset everything at ground zero, at zero, just let it to start to fix it. But man, that's hard to say, because that's a lot of lives lost and a lot of lives that are going to go down the tube, and it's going to affect, of course, the lower class more than anybody. But is there any other way? Is there any other way to try to fix it, aside from you out there talking, other people out there talking? Is there anybody listening aside from the ones that really want to listen? Are we getting to the ones that don't want to hear it? Are we getting to the Don Lemons at CNN? Are we getting to those? And I'm using him as an example because I think he's trash. Part of the problem. Are we getting to people like that they need to hear it, but they're not, because it's not part of their political agendas. It's not part of their ideologies. I don't know, man. I guess it is an opinion question. I'm not looking for an objective answer. I want a subjective answer from you, because I don't know what else to do. What else can we do? Is there anything we can do?
I truly believe deep down that the people like Don Lemon, they know deep down what is going on. However, because of where they work and because of the identity that they've created, they're almost obligated to stick with the storyline and stick with the narrative. That, I think, is the fundamental problem. I think the problem that exists is people who say, I'm a Democrat, and despite what is happening in the world around me, I have to vote Democrat, because if I don't vote Democrat, well, then that's my identity. I've identified. Now it used to be back in the day, prior to the social media, you never really knew who anyone was. It was like taboo to talk about it, and you would never not that you were afraid of it, but you just never really openly identified it. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative. It just wasn't talked about, and it was in poor taste to do that, But in today's world, you just go on Twitter and spew lies and spew garbage, and it is so clear, that guy's a Democrat, this guy's a Republican. So but it goes beyond like insanity, because people are now, because they're publicly identified to it, they feel like they have to now go all in. Where back in the day, I knew people who they were Democrats, but the world didn't know, and their friends maybe didn't know, and they would be like, and I kind of knew because they were close to me, and I'd be like, oh yeah, and they'd be like, hey, listen, on Tuesday I voted for Smith, and I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know, he was, I like his stance on this and this and this, and I was like, oh, okay, and he was a Republican. I'm like, oh, okay, so you voted. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, you voted for the Republican, but no one knew you voted for the Republican. But because deep down, he had some principles and some morals that you stood with that the guy who was running as a Democrat didn't. So, but it was okay because no one knew. And no one knew. It was okay. It was fine. But now, if I am on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok as the Democrat, the liberal dude, there's no way I could cast a vote for a Republican, even if everything the Republicans was saying was aligning with what I wanted. I can't do it because now it's public knowledge. I've declared it. So that's part of the problem that we have today. And so now you see people who, they're liberals, they're Democrats, whatever, and they're literally voting for people who are making the place they live worse to live.
Yeah.
But they just can't bring themselves. They gotta like defend this, and they gotta vote along that line. And it's purely mental. And the people who kind of cross that line, they see what happens. Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, Black man. I think he's a good guy. He's a retired cop, had spent his career in law enforcement, and he ran, and he ran a great race. And he's the mayor of arguably one of the most powerful biggest cities in the country, and
or the most powerful.
Oh yeah, probably the most. And I know LA's big. I don't know what the size numbers are. I know everything's always changing, but the second when crime started to get real bad, and he got in front of that podium and he said, one of the things we need is more cops. People lost their minds. People were like, what did he say? Well, crime is skyrocketing. Rape, murder, carjackings are through the roof. And he had the audacity to say we need more cops. And there were people who were just like, their minds exploded, because they're like, wait a second, I voted for this guy, and now he's saying we need more cops. They, in their mind, didn't have the sense to say, he's right. The crime is out of control. Like, things are burning and falling apart around me. He's a Democrat and I'm a Democrat, and Democrats are supposed to be, defund the police and whatever. But although he's saying it, it makes sense. And that people were losing their minds. And I said to myself, this is mental illness. This is mental illness, because the ultimate thing as human beings is survival, right? I studied biochemistry. I had to, get science degrees for what I was doing. So when you study human biology, nothing trumps survival. That everything we do is based on survival. So seeing people vote and support people who are doing things that actively go against their survival doesn't make sense. And the only time you will see it change is when it directly affects their survival. Yeah. And, I forget who said it. It was one of a female. She's like a political person. She said, "These people," and it was a strong statement to say, but she said, "These people," meaning these like rich white liberal people that live in their McMansions, they are not going to change the way they vote until it comes to their neighborhood and people they know start getting hurt, maybe killed, getting their house broken, their children injured. But that's the only time it's going to become real for them. Other than that, as long as they're insulated from it, they're just going to keep voting the way they vote, because that's who they are, and that's what they did. It's not going to change until that happens. There was a lady famously in California. She was a big liberal person. I forget her name. I saw the story years ago. Big liberal person, whatever. Her daughter, her teenage daughter, got, you probably saw the story, She got hit and killed by a 3 times deported illegal immigrant. The guy had been deported 3 times, and he was driving drunk and killed her.
Yeah, I remember.
Killed her. All of a sudden, she changed her tone. All of a sudden, she's not for sanctuary cities. All of a sudden, she's for borders protect. All of a sudden, out of the blue. Why? It took her own daughter getting killed. It hit home, and then she shifted. That's a sad point. Like, I know a lot of people, they have to hit rock bottom before they change their life. Addicts and all that people. It's true. A lot of people, they don't change until they hit rock bottom. A lot of people, they don't stop eating those Twinkies and start exercising until they go to that doctor, and the doctor walks in with that pen. Is like, listen, you're about to die. Oh shit. Okay. And then they start walking around the block. I see it. Guys start walking around the block, and you see them carrying the groceries in, and it's not like ho-hos and Twinkies. You see the broccoli sticking out of the bag, and you're like, oh, okay. Because they got that rock bottom diagnosis, right? So I knew a woman, she was overweight, trying to lose weight, boom, 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 nothing. I tried to give her advice, boom, nothing. Kept eating, no exercise, drinking shit, overweight, went to the doctor because she couldn't get pregnant. Doctor said, you can't get pregnant because you're fat and you will never have children at your weight that you would. Guess what? Lost 120 pounds. Lost amazing. 120 pounds, right? So everyone needs that rock bottom hit. And, I think that's where we're at as a society. It's going to hit. The Martha's Vineyard thing was a big deal because it pulled the veil off the people who were literally, when you drive onto Martha's Vineyard, there's a sign saying they stand with the immigrants. They're a sanctuary. There's a sign there. I don't know if you saw the sign. It's an incredible sign. It's posted there, and it's posted on stores there. And within less than 48 hours, those people were ejected to a military camp, to a military base. So now people are starting to be like, whoa, hold on, that wasn't very nice. Like, wait, hold on a second. So now people are starting to see the true colors of what some of these people who talk a certain way, what they really mean. You can't have a sign on your city hall that you love immigrants, you're all for diversity and inclusiveness. And then when 48 of them show up in your super wealthy place, you literally run for the military and have the military come extract them. That is like the biggest hypocrisy you could, it's embarrassing.
It is.
I want to make sure that we get to 221 tactical before we wrap up, though. So that's what you're doing now. I don't want to go too long here, but if you want to give us some background on what you do, I've seen the YouTube stuff. So yeah, just give us some background.
Yeah, so 221 Tactical started because of me dealing with gear while on the job that so you're doing a good job on that. I don't know if you started at a full gallon, but it's pretty early.
No, this was not a full gallon. I keep it in the refrigerator. No.
I do my gallon too, and I'm like,
I do just about, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But I'm usually at that far at around like 7 p.m.
No.
But,
it was down.
So I was like, I was buying gear, and it was just like falling apart. I was buying the big. I don't want to mention any names. I don't want to do that. But I was buying some of the big name tactical gear that they made special pants and all this stuff.
I know. You could say there's no love here for that company at all. They're trash. They're trash, dude. Trash.
And I would buy the stuff, and I'm working patrol, and the shit was falling apart. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm paying good money. So, then you're wearing like baseball batter's gloves to get good purchase on your weapon. And it's a batter's glove made by like Nike or Rawlings. And of course, it's not meant for doing car searches and stuff. So it was falling apart. But the main thing was I was hot and sweaty wearing my body armor. A couple of my buddies on my squad were breaking out in the skin infections and rash on their chest and on their back. And I was like, there's got to be something. There's got to be something to, fix this. And everyone said, no, there's nothing you could do. You just got to sweat and suffer. So using my science background, I developed a 3D material. It was right when 3D printing was coming about. And it was a material that was exploded that gave you a standoff from your body. So your vest actually floated on top of you and let air pass through, heat escape, cool air in. So I called it the Max Dry vest because The first time I used it, it was in the summertime, and I took my body armor off for the first time, and my undershirt wasn't wet; it was dry. So I gave it to a couple of coworkers of mine, and of course it worked. And then it, started producing it, and we got written up by this website called Police One, and they saw us at a trade show. Literally, drove to the trade show, opened the trunk of my car, and put out a table, and didn't even have a tablecloth, just a cardboard box with these in them. And they sold out. And this woman was walking around. She was from Police One. She's like, "What is this thing?" And it kind of looks like fishnet, so it looks like something that certain dudes might wear out on Saturday night to the club. And so I told her what it was, and she was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." And so then it just went viral. And then from there, I started saying, you know what? There's other things, gloves, base layers. Now we're getting into more apparel for civilians and, outside of law enforcement, tactical pants, tactical shorts, tactical jeans that don't scream, "I'm a tactical dude." Because part of like what I always wanted was I wanted to go out, I have things on me that like, the tactical ninja should have on, but I don't also want to walk through the supermarket or the airport or the mall or the amusement park and for someone to be like, "Oh, that guy, he's a tactical dude over there. Look at his pants. Look at his," So I never wanted to be that guy. And it almost defeats the purpose, because the truly bad guys are going to notice those good guys that are walking around. So I said, I want to make a line of apparel that's tactical gear that doesn't look tactical and also is high quality. The tactical gear for the cops, it's not going to fall apart. Lifetime warranty on everything. So we're doing the body armor, plate carriers now, all the stuff for police and civilians that, to me, when I was on the job, we had a hot call. You had to go to the trunk, put on a plate carrier. But unfortunately, you'd go to the trunk and the plate carrier was, set to fit like a guy who's half your size. So now they're like, "Shots fired, trailer, whatever." And you're like, "Oh, I gotta do the shoulder straps. I gotta do the cumber." No, so I developed, a plate carrier that adjusts in like 20 seconds to like get on fast, no matter what your body type, size, belly, no belly, whatever. So those things that I experienced as breakdowns on the job that I saw nobody solving, I said, I'm going to solve these problems. And now we're solving problems for not just law enforcement and military, but also for civilians who I say are responsible civilians who want to be assets and they don't want to be liabilities. And our newest thing we just launched are the shorts, which you'll be wearing a pair soon.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait to those, man.
Yeah, and like people it's funny. We got some reviews coming in, and people are like, "How did no one think of this yet? It's 2022. How did someone not think to make shorts with these features?" I said, "I don't know. I've always wanted shorts with these features. I never saw anyone, so I said I'm going to make them." And that's what someone just wrote up 221 Be Tactical. They said this company is like the Tesla of tactical gear, and that was like the biggest compliment, because we don't make the run of the mill stuff that everyone else has, and we just put our name on it. We truly focus on innovating and developing gear that doesn't exist in the marketplace, but there's a concern and a complaint. You go to any range, you go to any military base, you go to any police department, and you just sit down and listen, and you're going to hear bitching and moaning and complaining till the cows come home. So all I did was just started listening. I just started listening and taking notes and started creating the products to help solve these fundamental concerns. And once again, it's all about survival, right? Biology. It's all about, we want to survive. Our comfort is our survival. Having things that don't fall apart is survival. Being able to search a car and not get stuck by a needle, but also having the ability to also, with that same glove, shoot your gun.
Have the dexterity. Yeah, you got it. Protection, protection and dexterity. A lot of times with these gloves, they were such crap. Honestly, the best things that I would buy was workman gloves. I go to Farmer Supply, Tractor Supply, and those were the gloves you'd buy because they were the ones that actually had the best protection and still had the best dexterity. So it's good. And man, and I can't wait to try. Honestly, I can't wait the anti-sweat.
Oh yeah, you'll love it.
The half shirt I used to wear to the club, the fishnet half shirt. I can't wait to try that, man. I mean, because that's, again, it's something that I've been sweating my balls off under freaking body armor for years, and nobody This has been since 1996. Nobody
Mhm.
has made it. This is the first thing I've seen. How many years? That's 30, 20 some years, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I can't wait to try. And you're honestly, brother, your views on the Martha's Vineyard and all, dude, you're spot on. You're fucking spot on. And it's gonna have to come to those neighborhoods for it to change. It's just gonna have to. Because they
Yeah.
will never change. And what I say though, and I know we're gonna go here in a second. We kept you on long. What I say to the people, because there's a lot of buddies like myself that protect people like that. I used to. And I
Mhm.
tell them, like, guys, I know you need money, but don't you see the hypocrisy in that? Don't give. Sorry, guys. I quit protecting. Honestly, I stopped doing personal protection. I know guys need money. I get it. I get it, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we aren't helping the problem, being that guy that we're actually being part of the problem, because guess who that front line of defense is to those people that may need to see some violence. And I'm not condoning violence, but gosh damn it, I tell you what, the first time I saw violence, it sure fucking resonated in my head, and I didn't want to see it again. And I did
Yeah.
everything in my power to not see it again. But if we're protecting those people and giving our lives while we leave our families at home, we're protecting these people that don't give two shits about us. All right. Are we still not being part of the problem? I know I'm going to get a lot of haters from the security elements saying, yeah, Chris, you're full of shit. No, honestly, sit down and have an honest conversation with yourself, man. And that's why I respect the police. I do. I've had issues with some on the ethical side, and that was not with their job. It's what they did off their job. But I respect the job itself, and I respect police officers because they have no choice. They're out there protecting people that hate them. For them, and not all of them, but a lot that do, and they're still doing their damn jobs. So your views, dude, and I love them because they're spot on, and you say them a lot more eloquently than us stupid Rangers and SEALs. You have a great. So, but Brad, tremendous interview, and I loved everything you said. And again, I can't wait, guys. Check out 221B. They're part of Battleline. We're hopefully, if we continue this relationship, we'll continue to rep them. So we're using their stuff in the field. I know Michael Billings used your stuff already. So he's out there repping the stuff. And honestly, you have a contract with, did you get that with UFC? Just, we don't need to talk about it. Just, did you get that with, that's awesome. So you're out there. So I think
I just talked to Jeremy, and you guys have a bunch of your guys have a little, it's going to be Christmas come early for a few of you. So
awesome.
So stay tuned. Yeah. So some good stuff coming in the mail.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Thank you for.
I was just going to say, for the audience, check out 221btactical.com, 221btactical on YouTube, at 221btactical on Instagram. Do you have your own personal Instagram or anything like that, or is that the best place?
My personal Instagram is Suresh_actual.
Do you do I follow that? I don't follow. I think I just follow the 221B.
I'm not really like, I kind of hide there. I kind of hide there, and that's where I kind of do my private stuff. But yeah, Suresh_actual is my private one. And I just, to me, I want to get the message out. I appreciate opportunities like this, and
awesome.
I want to let people know. Like I think, ending on this note, which is I know that I'm probably the worst nightmare to a big group of people out there, because they see a black man that, whoa, he became a cop.
But I mean, are you you're an Indian man? Like, would you?
So people say that, and I never met my father, but of course people look at me. I never met my father, and I don't question where he's from, what he is, or where he is. I don't even know if he's alive. But people, I say, and people, there's two sides that people say, oh, your mom's Indian, okay. I say, put me in a street and have 100 people on the other side of the street look at me and say, who do you see over there?
I guess, I mean, I just, because you've mentioned black a few times, so I'm just wondering, because I mean, I'd say black in America doesn't really have to do with skin tone. I mean, like Ice-T is like pretty damn white looking. He's black, I mean, I would see you as an Indian person. So you might say that now that you know me, and know my name. No. If I saw you walk across the street, I would say you're Indian.
You're like the 0.001%. Like I literally, everyone who sees me, everyone throughout my life, everyone has always been like, hey, okay, he's a black guy. And I don't take that, personally, because there's plenty. I have friends from Trinidad. I have friends from Guyana. I have
True.
friends from, all over the place, and they're all my complexion. And everyone looks at us and they call us those black guys over there. Oh, those black guys. No one ever says, oh, look at that Indian, that Guyanese, and that Trinidad guy over there, or that guy who's from. No one ever says that.
I would be in the minority because I'm being completely genuine.
I don't see Indian over in you, dude. But anyway,
But anyway, what was the final point?
A lot of people don't.
Because I interrupted your final point.
So the final point is when living in this skin,
sure,
no matter what you may think, or you have a little bit more culture, so you're like, that's not a black guy. But the 99.999% of people who see me, I have to live as a black man. I have to go to the grocery store as a black man. I have to go to the library. I have to go to the mall. I got to go everywhere. I got to apply for jobs, and people are like, that's a black guy over there. So I have to now accept that. I have black skin. I live in America, and no one cares where my mother's from because it's in quick meetings. No one cares about that. But the reality is I've had to live this, and I've become something that they want you to believe is not possible. Police officer, a successful entrepreneur owning a multi-million-dollar company that's now global, taking care of people and doing good things, and believing that I have an opportunity to make the world a better place. Going to college, getting a degree, good job, education, own my own home, things, all those things that they're trying to say that if you look like me growing up in America, it's not possible, or there's something against you, or this thing in the ether that's going to try to hold you down. And I'm sitting here on this chat with you both saying that, I don't look like either of you, but I realized that I just had to be marginally better and work just marginally harder. That's all, to get to where I am. I didn't have to do anything insane or incredibly different. I just had to be just marginally better. And I got to where I am today. So it is possible. And anyone who tells you that there's this privilege that other people have that's holding you down or what, maybe, but that doesn't mean that you can't get to where I made it, looking the way I do. And trust me, I grew up everywhere I grew up, Staten Island, Jersey Shore. Even when I moved around, everyone was like, oh, there's a new black guy at the gym. Oh, a new black guy moved into the neighborhood. Everywhere I went, and that's just the reality. And I accept it. I don't ever get upset and be like, hey, whoa, wait a second. I don't know if my dad's black. He might be, but I don't know. And maybe my mom's Indian though. I never get offended, and I never take that stand. I say, you know what? Yeah, this is the color of my skin. I have black skin. I'm American. I'm a patriot, and I don't believe the narrative. I made it, and it's possible for anyone to make it if they want it bad enough. That's it.
Honestly, I think you look more black than Barack Obama. So if that means anything, so shit.
Yeah.
Sorry to say. And I get it. I get it. And the value though is just, again, hard work. It comes down to it. It's hard work. And I love it that our families are never met each other in the world, but it still that same resonation that came from my grandma, came from my mother, came from your mother. Work a little harder. Just work so they cannot not pick you. And it's amazing that they said the same thing. And that comes from two minority women that are toughest women in the world. So I did a great interview. And I don't know. That's all fine. I got nothing else, man. I can't wait for the gear. So tremendous.
Yep. You see it soon.
Last thing I wanted to say for the audience, of course, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, be sure you subscribe. If you're on YouTube, we could really use your help. So comments, like all the stuff. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Chris and I have been throwing out the idea of maybe as the new year approaches, doing some sort of Patreon. I was even thinking in my head of like that canvas behind me, that Battleline canvas, not the flag, the custom canvas of the logo. Maybe, for like people who subscribe to a higher tier, we could get new custom ones every month, number them, sign them, that type of thing. So if you like the idea, we're just throwing it around. We're not committed to anything.
Or,
but let us know.
We can work with 221B and I can get some gear from him, so we can use that as giveaways as well. I'd like to work
Absolutely.
with you,
Yeah.
obviously on the Battleline tactical side, but of course, anything I'd love to work with you still. And I know Ian's the same way on the podcast side of the house as well, and my E3 firearms as well. I'd like to everything.
Absolutely.
We're just throwing out the idea for right now. So I mean, if you're someone who would want to subscribe to a Patreon, let us know. It'd probably be closer to the new year. I mean, in full disclosure, Chris knows this, and I always am honest with the audience. I might end up doing something different full time in the new year. But if this show really gets to the point where we could bring in a good revenue stream in addition to YouTube, in addition to our sponsors through you guys on Patreon, that could change things. So let us know. And that's really it on our end. As always, new episodes every Monday. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
That's
Sure,
all
thanks,
for this
buddy.
episode of the Battleline podcast. But we'll be back on Monday with more American Straight Talk. Until then, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. To sign up for future Battleline tactical courses, go to www.christantoperanto.net. Believe in yourself, face all challenges head on, and as always, never quit.